Hello everyone, I'm Tony Southcott.
And I'm Komette, and welcome to Booze and Booze, where we pair different alcoholic drinks with our reviews of horror movies.
And today we're talking about Ari Aster's brand new movie, Midsommar, however you want to pronounce it.
Scary, bright, Scandinavian.
Very. This, you should go in wooden shoes.
Yeah, wooden shoes. I don't know. Let's go to the kitchen. We're going to show you this week's drink. Hi everyone, and welcome to my home in my very own kitchen. I'm very excited about today's drink because we're gonna do a bit of a twist on a classic. I'm gonna be calling it the Aster after the director for today's movie, and I'm very excited about it. Simple. We're gonna start off with a glass with ice already in it, and we're gonna do a half an ounce of lime juice. And then I'm going to do a full ounce of elderflower liqueur. The most popular brand is St. Germain's, but you can get a different one. This one is called St. Elder. Elderflower is very popular in Scandinavia, and that's where this movie takes place. So that's where I did that. And then we're gonna fill it up with some soda water. Now the little bit of twist on this drink is that we're going to do a vodka float on it, but we're going to be using our charcoal black vodka, and it's going to look really interesting. And there you have it, the Aster.
Well, we just left the theater, and I'm sorry this didn't come out Thursday when we saw the movie, but we've been having trouble with Cinemark because we literally had to sacrifice people who talked through the entire movie.
From a woman who at first I thought was very obnoxious. Turns out that she was wasted, and she yelled and talked and laughed and clapped her hands and made gestures the entire time. So Tony's perspective of this movie is probably going to be a little less tainted than mine.
Yeah, and don't get us wrong, we both enjoyed this movie. It's just there was a little bit of a distraction thing going on. This is Ari Aster's second major film. I'm actually not sure if he did anything prior to Hereditary. It's not something that I ended up getting to look up before this. And I will say, he's hitting the cult angle again, which is fine with me. And I love the way this movie looks. I love the flow of the movie. I love its portrayal of psychedelics. And before we get any further, we're going to try to keep this spoiler-free, but if you're looking forward to seeing Midsommar, you might want to hit this back up after you've seen it, because even talking about anything can be considered spoilers anymore.
Yeah, and we definitely don't want to ruin it for anybody if that's what they're wanting. I gotta say that this movie did something that a lot of people try and don't succeed at all. They made a horrifying movie colorful.
Yes.
Extremely colorful and extremely bright, even almost blinding at times that it was so bright.
Yeah, and that's the whole Sweden in Midsommar, where it's you might get 2 hours of semi-twilight. And I really like the challenge that they took on here to try and make that sort of movie with the blinding light and with flowers everywhere and with colored,
pinks.
The color palette was powerful, and it's
very Scandinavian.
Yes, very Scandinavian. I love this. I love the sets. I love the way this entire thing layered on itself, and it was just one of these. It was a movie that was so well crafted that it kept pulling me in further. And because I've seen The Wicker Man, because I've seen movies like that, I understand that there are things that are a little bit predictable. The end was not entirely predictable. It's not as cut and dry as you would expect for something like this. But there are some really interesting things that happen, and I really did enjoy this movie. Yeah,
I liked it a lot. I wish I would have seen it in a little bit more sterile of an environment. But that being said, I think another thing that this movie did really well is that it's the opposite of a Tarantino movie. There was not much talking or dialogue, really. Not story progressing dialogue. Everything was all visuals and scene story driven, I think.
And part of the way they did that was they had subtitles for some things, but you were left in the dark for a lot of what was being said, and that's a really good way to make it feel like you're
an outsider.
Part of the mystery. You don't know what's going on, you're just as lost as them, and it helps give, it elevates the level of tension for me. And that's probably the best word for this movie, like, is tension and uneasiness. It's like Hereditary in a lot of ways. I would say that Hereditary was scarier than this one, but I think that this movie was just as tense, like the suspense was there, and there's just a lot of just really sharp direction behind everything in this.
Yeah, I think the two words that I would use is unsettling and horrific. I don't think that this was a movie that I think really terrified me. I didn't feel like actually scared to be witnessing these things, but it was like, it was horrifying to witness it because it was really, I feel almost hyper reality kind of.
Yeah.
Like they did not censor anything. They never pulled the camera away for any sort of scenes, which a lot of horror movies do to make you know what's happening, but without it being overbearing. But it worked for this.
And it's not even like it's a gore fest or anything like that. It's
No.
just whenever there is gore, it's so pungent and done well that it stands out compared to most movies. And I think that's sort of a trademark thing of Ari Aster. And we were talking about this, like, we were whispering, like, you can tell this is from the guy who did Hereditary. And sorry if you hear
so
any
cute.
if you hear any jingling coming around. I adopted a greyhound, and she's supposed to be sleeping, and she's not.
She's very happy with a stuffed owl running around and being just absolutely adorable. So excuse us if we're talking about, like, heads getting smashed in and then, like, smiling and, like, laughing at it because you're cute. Anyways, but I don't want to keep on talking about that. I want to keep on talking about the good parts. I really liked the characters in this. I was telling Tony there is a particular scene that happened at the very beginning. I wish that would have been tied in. She's okay. Tied in a little bit more throughout the rest of the movie. Obviously, this had consequences for the character and why she was doing what she was doing and whatnot. But I kind of wanted a little bit more of that throughout the entire movie.
Yeah. And you want to talk about setting a mood for a movie. The first 10 minutes of this movie hit hard, hit dark and, like,
graphic,
unapologetic, and it's one of those things where it just hurts. And the actress did a really good job in this movie of showing hurt without a lot of talking, a lot of, like, twisted emotions, a lot of just deep-seated fear in everything she did, and it started because of those scenes.
Yeah.
And man, like starting out that movie, I was like, this is bleak.
It is very bleak, and they set kind of a bar for the rest of the movie, and they achieved it. It didn't get lulled. This movie was 2 hours and 45 minutes. Just shy of 3 hours, and I was terrified by that. I thought we were going to be sitting and I was going to be like, ugh. But honestly, even with Yappity Yapper next to me, it went really quickly. It did not feel like 3 hours long.
I would say it felt like a good 2 hour movie.
Yeah.
Like, as far as, like, whatever the pace is there. And I'm not sure how much there really would be to cut from it to lower it. Like, there's not, like, you need a lot of that's in there. Also, I want to talk about, like, the use of psychedelics, because in a lot of movies, whenever they do psychedelics, whether it's, like, peyote, mushrooms, whatever, like, they do it over the top and it's a little bit too far. This movie felt like a trip, like, in a lot of parts where, like, things are just a little bit subtly different, where mirrors are not fun, where, like, the trees are just a little too wavy.
People's
and breathing.
faces aren't just quite, like, they look normal, but something's not quite right.
Yeah, just like a little bit too wide of a grin, or like the eyes just moving in a different way. Like, there was a lot that they did with that. I won't say, like, specifics for plot or anything, but they did a good job of showing that. And that is a big part of, like, the old Scandinavian rituals, which they also even added in, like, some of the violence that I'd read about before that I can't talk about because of spoilers. Like,
tell me real quick and bleep it out. Fascinating! Oh my lord, learning something new.
Yeah, so there's some extra level violence that's actually in character. And you want to talk about world building. I feel like Ari Aster had a perfect vision for exactly what he wanted this group to be like, and he executed it well. I'm not 100% certain how realistic, if there's, like, an actual group like this out in the woods in Scandinavia. I don't know, but what he wanted to pull off, he did very well. This had so many flavors of Wicker Man and various other movies put into it, but it never felt like it ripped anything off because he put so much effort in.
And this movie was saturated with culture. Who knows, like Tony said, is if this culture is real or if it's fictional, but it made it feel very real. It made it feel like Johnstown-esque cult. And I'm not saying that I'm an expert in any way, shape, or form in Scandinavia stuff. I've been to Denmark twice. I had an ex-boyfriend who is Danish. And so I got immersed a bit into some Scandinavia culture. And I gotta say, a lot of it was really well done. The accents, most of the time Hollywood can't do a Scandinavia accent because it's very strange and it doesn't make sense. But I think they got actual Scandinavian people.
I'd be surprised if they didn't because it just, everything flowed right. And like they had people speaking the native language, and you don't want to get Western actors to try to just like off of a script try to say those things.
I've never seen as many Scandinavian men that still had their hair though. I gotta say that I was like, I've seen like any Scandinavian man that gets past like 40 looks exactly the same. Exactly the same. Bald, stockier, kind of the same face shape and everything like that. And I was like, you picked your most beautiful people to be in this movie.
That's always movies, though.
Yeah.
Like, although they did have some restraint on a lot of the women in this feature. Like, they didn't, like, when you think of Sweden, a lot of things is like the bombshell blonde with, like, the perfect body and everything. And they had some very pretty girls in this, but they didn't, like, overpower you with it.
No.
It wasn't like some, like, Porky's comedy or something like that.
Yeah, agreed. But that being said, the aesthetic, obviously you could tell that they'd done their research. It was very, very Scandinavian.
Yeah.
Extremely Scandinavian. From the clothes to the hair to just the people.
On the walls.
The paintings, the buildings were very Scandinavian. Although there would be a lot more moss.
Yeah.
On like the like
shingles. Well, like you can tell that they built new buildings and made them look old.
Yeah.
So like it's a little bit interesting. Plus they had the end scene from Mandy, or they had the same exact church in Mandy. It was a little bit weird seeing that.
Churches do not look like that. In Denmark,
it's not a church. It's a pagan church or temple or whatever you want to call it. I'm just saying, like at the end of Mandy, there's a perfect triangle like that one, and it reminded me a lot of that movie.
Anyways, back to so they got the aesthetics very well. It was a really quiet movie. It was very quiet.
Yeah.
How did you enjoy that?
I like whenever a soundtrack is restrained. Like one of my favorite movies ever, No Country for Old Men, doesn't have a soundtrack, and I think it's made more intense because of that. But they tried to do quiet for a long time and then would occasionally raise it up and have like piano going, and that didn't work. What did work is whenever you actually saw these groups of people, because it's their festival, like they're playing all the different music, like you see like weird instruments too, like the hurdy-gurdy, which is like a weird wheeled thing that does like the constant signal, which I didn't even hear of a hurdy-gurdy until like 2 weeks ago, and now I've heard it everywhere. Remember The Vast of Night ended with the hurdy-gurdy man. Like it's just weird how like that became part of a thing, and then I'm playing Sea of Thieves, and all of a sudden, no, it's weird. Sorry.
Side note.
Tangents.
But, like, I think if I was watching this in my home where it was really quiet, I feel like I would feel that quiet kind of like a blanket. It's almost claustrophobic.
Yeah.
That was Lost on Man this time, though.
Like, with that oppressive, like, silence a lot of times, like, that was definitely a thing that I could see being better at home than in a theater. Like, maybe it was just because of the people that were there. Like, I definitely agree with you on that. But not having a crazy soundtrack never got in the way of what they were trying to portray. It actually allowed like the movie to breathe a little bit.
I think it was a really good choice. It made, when there was some sort of music, it made those scenes special, and then when there was nothing, it made you kind of sit up and pay more attention, and I think that's really applauding. I think the fact that it was like a blanket of silence was great.
Yeah.
It made your mind kind of like when she's on the phone with her boyfriend at the very beginning, like, you know what I'm talking about? It was so quiet. You just could see her emotion, and it was really tight on her face, and you could see her emotion and kind of like her panic and like all that stuff, and that's really appreciative in moments like that.
Yeah, and like you could also hear like the tension in the other characters, and like the way they portray the relationship between the first two characters and like the reasons why he's staying and like all this obligation and guilt and everything else, like I feel like that might have come from a place where the writer or Ari Aster, I don't know if he wrote and directed this one, if like it just felt like something someone had been through because it was so potent.
It was very potent and horrific. This movie was horrific.
That's not to say there aren't some missed opportunities with this movie. Like I feel like there were. Most of it relates to things that happened in the first 10 minutes. I know you were talking about that on the way out of the theater.
Yeah.
Like there could have been a few more seeds planted here and there. There are a few things that I wanted to explore a little bit more and understand more about the culture. Maybe there's going to be a 3-hour cut later that shows some of these things. Like I don't know. But at the same time, if they delve too far into the things at the beginning, it might have detracted from the story they were trying to tell. So maybe that's very intentional. I just felt like it was a little glossed over for how impactful it is. Because if a movie ended on what happens there, people would be stunned. Mm-hmm. And to start your movie with something that's more stunning than what most people can tolerate and move into another movie is just an interesting move. And it shows that Ari Aster is one of the more oddly creative guys out there for movies, and we're kind of seeing a rise. Like we've been seeing A24 put out these movies for a while, but I feel like as far as horror and tension goes, Ari Aster is going to be like one of those big names that people are going to be writing papers about this movie because of like what it meant culturally, the symbolism behind different things. Like the depth of this movie is really high, and it's not too highfalutin like Jodorowsky films where it's just like why is there jaguar nipples spraying milk? Like, why does a guy have jaguar, like, nipples spraying milk? There's no sense here. Like, so it's, we gotta watch The Holy Mountain someday.
Oh my god. Before I lose this train of thought, I would love to have a prequel and it ends on how the movie began.
Yeah.
That would be fascinating. And this movie also does an incredible job on touching on PTSD and somebody trying to deal with trauma in a way that it doesn't wholly affect the people around him.
Yeah, and I felt like anytime there was like a panic attack starting or anything like that, I felt like that was very realistic.
Very.
And the things that triggered it never felt like they were tedious or wrong. It felt like, I think they'd have a problem there.
Yeah, definitely, I agree. And if you get the chance to watch this movie, I highly recommend it. It does not feel that long, so don't let the timestamp move you away from this.
Yeah, and don't let our experience in the movie move you away because that was just a drunk person in the middle of the day.
It's like 1:00 on a Saturday. Why are you this drunk?
She's probably drunk from the night before.
I don't know. She was like in her 50s, mid-50s, and her husband also, and
it was a mess.
I'm so disappointed in humanity right now.
Anyway, thank you guys for watching this. We would love it if you put some booze and booze suggestions in the comments, if you checked us out on patreon.com/humanechoes, and if you liked and subscribed. Share this with your friends, and we will talk to you soon with more Booze and Booze, original verse remake.
Okay.
And she's got something exciting to say. I don't know what.
We forgot to give a shout out to Brett.
Oh yeah, Brett. Brett, the Candy Man.
The Candy Man. He told us to give a shout out, so there you go. You can put that at the beginning. Or whatever.
All right.
Awesome, guys. We'll talk to you later.
Bye.
Bye.